This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum and Tonya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward, and welcome to a very special episode of House Shopping with Tonya.
I thought they were pretty much all special episodes because your topics always get me riled up. So I can't imagine that house shopping with Tonya is going to be less stressful than any other things that I do with Tonya.
Well, I'm glad to bring that stress to your life.
You're very good at it.
So the cute boy and I went and looked at some houses this weekend, and I will say that we accomplished looking at 3 houses that could not be more different. The realtor actually made the comment that she had never had the experience where people picked 3 houses that none of them had the same amenities, none of them had the same square footage, number of bedrooms. Everything was basically within the same price range, but that was the only thing that any of the houses had in common. But the second house, which my husband refers to as the mansion, even though it has the same square footage as everything else, had a swimming pool in the backyard, the likes of which I have never seen and did not know existed in normal people's backyards. Right now, this house was built in 1965, which just made every insurance person on the planet's heart just kind of sink a little bit. And I know this, but it did have a swimming pool that was massive, and it was 12 feet at the deepest point, and it had the giant mid-height diving board. Like, this is obviously somebody that was at some point a competitive diver to have had this swimming pool in this setup. And so one of the questions that I asked the realtor was, with this size swimming pool, especially being this deep and with this particular diving board, would that keep me from being able to get insurance? Or would we need to do something about all of that?
The non-political correct answer to this is the word diving board is going to cause you a problem. But let me back up. I got a picture of this house in my brain because one of the most favorite things that I've ever done in my life is going on runs in Florida while we were on vacation. And there's this one area in Fort Walton Beach that is this road, and I would run down this road, which on one side of the road were the big condo buildings. On the other side of the road were houses. So I would run down this road, and it ran probably about 2.5 miles to the end point, and it just dead ended. And as you got further and further down the road, the houses became extremely distinct. They were very 60s style ranch type houses. They were amazing to me because I'm a Godfather fan, and I just felt like they were all retired mobsters that lived there. Like, that's the only people that could possibly have lived in those houses. And so the real question, before we get too deep into the diving board discussion and pool discussion and insurance risk, is the cute boy's not a retired mobster, is he?
You've met him. No, he's the antithesis of that, right? But I can see the description of what you're saying. And had you seen the backyard, it had a 3/4 acre lot that was so Florida landscaped to the nth degree. I mean, it had all of these little statues that were in these little alcove areas with banana trees and crepe myrtles and these huge navel live oak trees, because one of the comments that I made about this particular house was that this would be such a lifestyle change for us, because we would have to go from being the people that love to pick up on the weekend to travel to me becoming the old Southern woman that wears ugly hats and plays in the dirt to maintain this kind of lavish landscaped backyard, because there's no way we could afford a landscaper to do all this stuff.
Which brings me to my point. We always ask and worry about the insurance and the gardener. And if you have to ask those questions, maybe that's not the house for the buyer. And we've gotten into these discussions before, especially around your lovely state there in Florida, around people buying multi-million-dollar homes on the coast, but I'm mad about the insurance. This is just that pet peeve of mine that comes out that's like, is the diving board going to be a problem? Probably, because all diving boards will typically create create an insurance problem in some way, underwriting issue. Did you have to climb up a step or two to get onto the diving board?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you're in trouble. Is it insurable? Yeah, somebody will write it for the right price. I feel like as a society, like we spend so much time worrying about the insurance or the cost of the insurance without even thinking about the fact that we're going to spend all this money on this house. Or to your point, we're going to need a gardener because we're not going to do this. We can't do this. We don't know how to do this. The whole thing that attracted you to the house in the first place was the garden, possibly, but then you don't want to spend the money on the gardener. Well, then you're not looking at the right house. I just don't understand the fringe issues that come with the home buying sector that seem to cause people problems. The house itself is the issue. The house itself and the cost of the house is really your question. I have another story here that's very recent, and it's around swimming pools in general. You put in a pool. It's a ridiculous amount of money these days, by the way.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's dumb.
It is absolutely crazy.
COVID killed it like everything else because the pool business went nuts. When I put in my pool, 2018, the cost gap between a liner pool and a gunite pool was just not that drastic, and now it's just crazy different. But here's the thing. I have the most ultimate insurance guide pool ever. There's no diving boards, there's no slides, there's no waterfalls, there's literally nothing where you can fall, slip, and break yourself in our pool. But we love our pool. When I think about when we built our pool, the pool company's like, you don't want the maintenance. Well, how much is the maintenance? Well, it was ridiculously cheap in my brain. And I'm like, well, absolutely, I want you to take care of this pool for me. I do not want to take care of this pool. And I knew that going in. If you're going to spend, and it wasn't this at that time, our pool was significantly less, but if you're going to spend $100,000 on a pool, but you aren't willing to spend a couple of $100s a month on somebody taking care of it, that absolutely blows my mind. We have friends who take care of their own pool maintenance, and they're constantly complaining about how their pool looks. Why don't you have a professional taking care of your pool? I just don't get it.
Yes, and if we have a pool, there will be somebody that comes to do that because I'm not the expert at that. So why would I do it? Why would I even attempt to do it and mess it up?
I guess it's the underwriting of the finance world or the lending world today. They're so aggressive. Interest rates are up, I know, but insurance should not be your reason for not buying this home.
There were several reasons for not buying this home. We decided rather quickly that this was not for us, just for the simple fact that I'm sure that there's someone in the world that would love to have this kind of backyard, but we are not those people. So I'm not buying the mansion. And it's so funny that the cute boy calls it that, because really it's the exact same square footage of the other houses that we looked at, but it's just how this house looked on the hill in Pensacola. But all of that being said, throughout the day when I was working with this realtor, I would ask her these random questions about insurance and what about this and what about that. And about halfway through the day, she looked at me and she said, well, I'll tell you one thing, you know a whole lot more about insurance than I do, which kind of made me internally giggle.
It made me giggle right now.
Yeah, Shane just really laughed about this. And she said, I would really love to have you come and talk to our realtor group. She said, because you have so much knowledge. And I'm thinking, I'm probably not your girl for this. And she's like, yeah, you could talk about this and you could talk about that. And I said, well, I'm not really qualified to talk about those things. I'm not an agent. I said, but what I would love to come and talk to your group about is how to work with the insurance agent to make this process as easy as possible for you and for your client, or how to maybe team up from a marketing perspective, or how to find a really great agent to work with you. Those are the things that I can come in and talk about. And she's like, oh yeah, that would be great. What I found interesting about this entire process was I never presented myself as an insurance expert. I didn't even tell her that I worked with an insurance group and did this for a living. She thought I was an expert simply because I was asking questions.
Yeah, so the fact that you actually asked a question about insurance, it created something in her mind. And I think there is something to this. We spend a ton of energy trying to show people or tell people how smart we are. And that should happen naturally. And I think that goes back to the authenticity situation, like this authentic movement that I feel like needs to happen and is happening. And it's one that we need to kind of grab a hold of and just be who we are. Number one, good for you for thinking like that, but also it's going to come across as just this authentic situation, and you're going to be elevated in this lady's mind.
It was absolutely an authentic question because, yes, this house was in our price range, but if there's other things that are going to cause it to be out of our price range, I need to know that up front so I can move to the next house.
Absolutely. Sometimes we try too hard, and then we have these moments where we go, oh, wow, that was not at all what I thought was going to come out of this house showing, but wow, okay, I'm now an insurance expert according to this realtor in this realtor group, and maybe there's a relationship there that I need to go ahead and step forward on. And all of that came out of just being authentically inquisitive and just asking questions and just being genuinely concerned about your surroundings or what's going on. And I have to brag a little bit on my brother-in-law, who's a commercial producer for our agency. This is how he goes about prospecting. He still loves in-person cold calling. He is genuinely interested in people's businesses, how they work, how they make money, what's unique about what they do. He's genuinely interested to the extent that that's what he does, is he asks questions and he is curious. And the interesting thing is when you get people to talking about their businesses, business owners, they will talk all day. They will absolutely let you in the door and talk all day. You just have to be genuinely interested in what they're doing. And the interesting part about that is that you're learning about their business and their risk issues all along the way through that process. I think that's just the natural way to go about it. And I think it's really the natural way that we should go about any selling these days.
I don't think there's any selling in this day and age, or even really in the last 2 to 3 decades, that can be done any other way long-term successfully. I'm not saying there are not going to be some one-offs here and there, but I can remember I was working in Shreveport at the time, and we had a new general sales manager come in, and she wanted to spend a day in the field out prospecting with each of us. Now, at the time, that wasn't what I did. I primarily was working with larger companies, but she wanted to kind of get the feel of our personality. So I said, sure, let's go out. We'll cold call all day. It'll be fun. And randomly walked into a crafting mall that was in a strip center. We were just kind of hitting a strip center. And it was one of these situations where they had vendors that are set up around with all these different things, and started talking to the lady behind the counter who happened to be the owner, and ended up staying for about 30 minutes and asking questions about her business and how it was set up and how she found her vendors and all of these things. And when we left, I remember Lisa looked at me and she said, well, how long have you known that lady? And I said, about 32 minutes. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, we just walked in there and I introduced myself. And she said, but you created a conversation and you acted like you had known her for forever. And I said, well, she had a cool shop. Like, she had neat stuff in there. I legitimately wondered, how does this happen? How does this vendor business like this get started? And it wasn't that I was really even trying to sell the lady anything. I mean, I left my card. I told her that I would follow up with her. But it wasn't that I went in there to make a sale, because if I had gone into this brand new business to make a sale, I would have been like 9 out of 10 people that walk in there, right? But I thought it was a neat business. It was a cool business idea. And now, of course, that's become more and more common across the country. But at the time, I'd never really seen it before.
You want a referral source that will be committed to you. Learn their business, understand their business, understand what creates problems for them, and be a consultant. Help them through that. And definitely in the commercial insurance space, all of us have these opportunities that we really are interested in some type of industry or some type of niche area, and you can become the insurance expert for those types of businesses and those types of industries. And you may not even know what that is. That may be something that has to be identified. But to be an insurance professional and then learn about another industry that you can bring insurance solutions, risk management solutions to, number one, you're going to have more fun. You're going to enjoy your job a lot better. And I think that's first and foremost really, really important. We need to get up every day and really love what we're doing and love to go to work and love to do the things that we do. And I see so many agents out there kind of get into this rut of insurance and just feeling like they're being hit over the head constantly. If you're doing it in a place where you love it, where you're genuinely interested in your customer base, in your prospect base first and foremost, then it's going to be a lot easier and you're going to have a lot more fun at it. That's something we need to take to heart.
Ask questions and understand their problems and see if you can figure out a solution to it. One of my favorite things to do with florist clients was to deliver flowers with them on Valentine's Day. That is such a huge challenge for florists, right? And they can never find enough people to do that. Well, if you're trying to write a florist and you can go and deliver flowers for them on Valentine's Day, let me tell you, you're going to see everything that can go wrong in their business. You're going to be a solution for them. And not only are you probably going to get their business, they're going to tell all of their friends what you did, and they're going to become a great referral source for you, right? So if you can be that solution, as a female, I had an account years ago that I had been calling on these people for probably 9 months and had not gotten anywhere. And this one particular day, I walked into their business and they were trying to rearrange the shelf. They weren't having great success selling this new product and trying to figure out how to present it. And I had been listening and I knew that they were so excited about this particular product and what it was. And I'd actually gone online and done a little bit of research. And I'm like, well, why don't you, instead of setting up a singular display of this, let's sprinkle it around the shop and incorporate it with other items that are selling beautifully. Let's put it with your purses. Let's put it with your hats. Let's put it with this. And helped them rearrange their store that afternoon. And all of a sudden, over the next 2 to 3 months, this major brand investment that they had decided was going to be an integral part of their store that up until that point hadn't, because I said, hey, let's try it this way and see what happens. Now, do I have any kind of knowledge of store displays? No, but I do shop a lot. So maybe I'm the expert from that. But it worked. And so the next time I walked into that store, they were so excited because they said, hey, your idea really worked. And I was like, well, thank you. And, they were like, well, can you help with this? Do you have any ideas for this? And I said, well, I don't, but let's think about it. Let's talk through it together. I asked them questions, being curious because I really did wonder. And they ended up being a very long-term client of mine and sent me business simply because I asked some questions, said, hey, let's try this. Does this work? And I think going back to our original topic with the house thing, she saw me as an expert because I was asking questions because I was really curious, wondering if this was going to happen. So I'm thinking that sometimes we go off the rails with trying to be the expert for someone instead of asking the questions, being genuinely curious, wanting people to be successful, and taking that route of, I'm just going to learn as much as I possibly can about this person and about their product and see where things go from there. I've also learned over the years that if I'm working with client A and I have client B, if I call client B and say, hey, I've been talking to John and John is struggling within the industry. I would love to introduce the two of you and maybe y'all could help each other because you have this challenge, he has this challenge. Maybe y'all could work together. And sometimes being that connector creates great relationships and people see you as the expert because of it.
I love connectors. I love that idea. What that requires is that it requires you to slow down. And that sounds like craziness today. When you gave the Valentine's Day example for the florist, one of our next door neighbors on Main Street is a florist. One of our former longtime employees that actually was the one that trained me up in the insurance business bought that florist pre-retirement and then retired, and she actually runs that florist. And some of our people have actually worked Valentine's Day before. They've taken a vacation day here and gone over and worked Valentine's Day, because it is a crazy day and it is an incredible thing for a florist. But what that requires is it requires you to slow down and it requires you to make an investment. And when you say that to someone today that's in the sales environment, I think maybe it's the technology, maybe it's so many different things that contribute to this mindset, but we are in a frantic, constant push and cycle to go as fast as we can. And when we go as fast as we can, we do not see the time investment to ask questions as something that's going to help us. We're not willing to slow down enough to be genuinely concerned. We fake it, and that's not a good thing. Well, what could asking questions, slowing down, listening, being a problem solver, what could that actually bring me? It's going to bring you that referral source down the road that's sort of perpetual. You invested some time up front on the prospecting relationship, and that rewarded you for years to come. Whereas I'm just trying to sell something, and it's just about today. And I think that's not what the independent agency system has been built on.
Something small that you can do that doesn't take a lot of time. If you go to a Mexican restaurant and you get an incredible order of street tacos, hop on your agency's social media account and say, hey, I had a great dinner at XYZ tonight. Their brisket street tacos were amazing, and then tag that particular restaurant in there. Later that week, if you go to a shop and they've gotten a really great set of cufflinks in that you thought were really pretty, then shout out to John Smith at XYZ Menswear that showed me this great set of cufflinks today. And when you take 30, 45 seconds on your business's social to acknowledge the success of someone else, whether it's an award, whether it's great service, great food, whatever, it makes a difference, and it starts to build a relationship, and that can snowball long term for the success of your agency.
To bring the sports element into it today, we as a society kind of have tilted and moved into this entitlement mindset where we think down this path of, if you pay me or you reward me, I'll do something better. It's never been that way. We think about, why did Pat Mahomes get the contract he got? Well, it's because they did something, right? It wasn't because they just showed up. They accomplished a lot. They accomplished either MVP awards and Super Bowl rings, and Tom Brady, obviously, Michael Jordan, all of these athletes that make this amount of money, and all we see is the result. We don't see the day one work that went into that scenario, to that result. We just see the result. That's kind of where I see some youth athletics going, and I see it with the ranking systems that some of these websites, they're basically selling subscriptions to their website, and they've started putting out rankings over the last 5 or 6 years, and they rank players. They rank 6th graders and 7th graders. I mean, it's dumb, but they're selling subscriptions. And then the thing that happens is mom and dad get worked up about little Susie didn't get ranked and his friends or her friends got ranked. Well, how do y'all determine the rankings, and what have you done to deserve the ranking? Number one, shame on the ranking systems, but what have you done to deserve that ranking? That's the question I always ask. I think it's kind of where we are, like doing the work on prospecting, building relationships when they're not your clients, giving the shout out to the business that you don't do business with. All of these things are very similar to putting in the work and then eventually you get paid. It's not pay me and then I'll do the work, which is where we've moved to. We've moved our sales and marketing process to, we're not going to do anything for that person because they're not our client. And I know plenty of agents that see it that way. That's just the way they work. I don't think it's a great marketing strategy. I definitely do not think it's a great community relations strategy, which is where we've moved to. When you're in community relations, when you're going down that route, then you're going to to do things, if you're doing it right, for people that you don't know. You're going to serve the community. Our community relations rep is the reigning county diplomat of the year. And the first, this is really what we're doing kind of moment for me was when the chamber diplomat, that's the one that goes out and greets the new businesses. Well, a new insurance agency opened in our community, and she was standing there doing the ribbon cutting for the other insurance agency. And it was like Melissa Roberts with Integra Insurance. And I'm like, this is really wacky. But how awesome was it that we were right there in the ribbon cutting on the post all through social media for this other insurance agency. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, okay, now how cool is that? It just was something that I've never seen happen that hit me right between the eyes as, okay, this is how we grow in our community. This is how we gain respect in our community. And this is how we grow our brand in our community, because we're not afraid of mixing it up with the competition or putting ourselves out there before we actually have the sale and investing in other businesses that are going to be beneficial to our community.
I'm going to leave us today with this quote from Simone Biles. Today, do what others won't, so tomorrow you can accomplish what others can't.
Attitude's a choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
Ready to get the ball rolling with your independent agency? Learn more at IntegraAgent.com. That's IntegraAgent.com. Thank you for joining us on IA Forward. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now, or learn more at IAForward.com.